Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is NE150, and this is Module 11, Texturing and Rendering the Sci-Fi Weapon, Part 3. Well, we're at the stage where we need to go ahead and get these exported out. Everything's looking pretty good with these, so highly suggested that you make sure everything is exactly the way you want it. We've got our low poly. I've got my layers managed now. If you have a model somewhere else or geometry somewhere else and you need to import it into the scene, all you have to do is go into File and go into Import, and you can import any object into this scene, and that's basically how I got everything together. You may not have everything in one scene. If you do, great. What I want you to do is get rid of everything you don't need to have, and these are the things you need to have. You need to have your low poly. Okay, this is what that looks like, the low poly. And then you have your low poly that's triangulated. Okay, that looks like that. I'm going to go ahead and turn on wireframe unshaded so we can see that. So those are two different things. So basically what you do is you select that, you duplicate it, Control D, put it in a layer, and then you add the triangulate. To do that, you can just go to Mesh, Triangulate, right here. Okay. Alright, so you got that triangulated. What you want to do is you want to delete by type history. So go to Polymodeling on your shelf, and you've got your center pivot, you've got your delete history, and you got freeze transformations. Now, I usually like to do all three on each one of these. Now, I've already done this before, but you can basically center pivot, delete by type history, and freeze transformations. When you do all that, that'll clean your UVs up real nice. Okay. And I think you guys have all your UVs completely finished and laid out. I'm using Udem tiles, and I am breaking everything up into Udem tiles and breaking them up into each one of these can be a material, a different material. Okay. I like to break things up that way because it makes it easier for me to go ahead and use Substance Painter without having to mask anything. This allows me the freedom to not waste any more time than I have to in Substance Painter and get right down to what I need to do. And each one of these Udem tiles has its own material that I'm thinking of. Basically, I write down all the materials that I want to apply. Even if you use a material for like 3 Udem tiles, that's okay. The idea is that you think ahead of time what you're going to do with your materials and how you're going to texture the object, and that makes things a lot easier. Okay, so that's my Udem tiles. And again, when you save something out, let's go ahead and open that up one more time just to kind of refresh your memory. First of all, we are always wanting to make sure that the Udem tiles are efficient. Okay, in the best way we can is to make sure that we go in here and make sure our our textile density is correct. So you can go down here and you know how to use that and make sure your textile density is correct, and you can go into your checkerboard and also check the textile density on your weapon. And it looks like the textile density is doing really well. Just double check on that before you do anything else. Let me close everything else. So delete by type history, freeze transformations, and triangulate your low poly. Always keep this low poly is what I'm going to be actually texturing. And this is the low poly duplicated and then triangulated, and this is what we're going to export out. And then the high poly we need to have as a high resolution, and we also need the medium poly. Now the medium poly has all the edge loops that we added. Okay, you always want to keep a duplicate of that. And my high poly. So what we're really going to be using is the high poly when we go to Substance Painter, and the triangulated one, the low poly triangulated. Okay, those two are going to go in to Substance Painter. Now, we're going to import that into Substance Painter, And the high poly is we're going to use that for the baking process. Okay? Alright. That's basically it. So what you're going to do is you're going to export these two guys right here and make sure they're occupying the same space. Make sure, what I mean by that is that they're basically on top of each other. Okay? So make sure they're on top of each other, and otherwise it will not bake properly. If your high poly is off center and this is your low poly and they're both like that, the baking process will not work. Okay? They have to be in the same space. Okay, occupying the same space, 0, 0. So if you see them both on, that's what it looks like. They're on top of each other. Here's the low poly. Well, it's hard to click. There it is. There's the low poly and there's the high poly. Okay. Alright, so go ahead and save those out separately, one at a time, by going to File, Export Selection, and make sure it's OBJ, Export Selection. Export the selection and save it out. And save it as a unique name. Okay, hopefully you put low poly triangulate on that. And then the high poly, the same thing. Go ahead and File, Export Selection. I've already done all this. And save it as an OBJ and give it a specific name. Okay? Alright, perfect. With that done, I want you to save this scene out with your low poly triangulated, your low poly without being triangulated, because that's what we're going to actually texture. You're going to turn that in. And the medium poly you won't ever use again, but it's nice to have it in case you want to make changes at this level. Okay? Alright, great. Perfect. Alright, so let's go ahead and go into Substance Painter. And I'll show you how to get it brought in. So we're going to go to File, New. And we're going to go into make sure we're PBR metal roughness. Make sure you select your file. And where are we here with this? Alright. Low poly triangulated. Here we go. Okay. Open that up. And I'm going to do 4096. And everything else looks good. And we want to make sure I'm using a UDIM tile workflow. So use UV tile workflow, yes. And it's going to be on this one here, so you want to make sure you select Convert UV Tiles into Individual Texture Sets Legacy. Okay. We don't want to do anything else. We just go ahead and click OK. And now it brings your weapon in. Okay, this is your low poly, triangulated. And the nice thing is that I like the old legacy UDIM tile setup. I've gotten used to that, and it's a lot easier for me to use. And I usually do one at a time, and I like that. So I've got over 17 UDIM tiles, which is a lot. You may not want to do that many, and you don't necessarily have to. I just wanted to give myself lots of room. And it does take a lot of memory to do what I'm about to do. I'm going to go ahead and bake the maps. You have to bake maps. So if you crash your system, this is the time you need to think, okay, well maybe I should have fewer UDIM tiles. Okay, and on top of that, maybe I need to go with 2048 by 2048 resolution instead of 4096 by 4096. Because it takes a lot of memory to bake maps. So I'm going to go in here and bake maps. We're going to go to, let's see here, where is that at again? They changed it. Viewport, no. Bake maps, there we go. Bake mesh maps, Control-Shift-B. Okay. So here's our bake maps. We don't need an ID. Okay. We don't need a position map. Maybe we do, but we definitely don't need ID. We don't need world space normal. Okay, we need normal. We don't really need ambient occlusion. The fewer maps we have that we have to deal with, the better. Now the ambient occlusion, I think it uses the dirt map. Like you may want to use that, but I know those two it doesn't need to have. Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so set that up, and then we're going to do 4096. Now, if you want to do 2048, that's fine with me too as well, so go ahead and do that if your system can't handle something large. Also, you got to remember you need a lot of hard drive space to run Substance Painter, okay, and RAM. So just keep that in mind. So if you crash a lot, go to a lower resolution. That might help. So we want a high definition mesh, so we know where that is. That's that guy right there. High poly. And everything else is set up. You don't have to do anything else. And what we're going to do is go ahead and bake and select the textures. This will take a while, so I'll pause the video. Okay, we're back, and I have all the maps baked. And I pinpointed some issues that I see, and if you see the same thing, you can do the same thing I'm about ready to do. Because the high poly was separated and away from the object, we're getting a shadow from these pieces that are farther away from the object. So the only way you're going to be able to get rid of those is to go back into Maya and fine-tune your high poly model and make sure that your pieces don't stick out away from the model. This is the high poly. Well, I'm not going to do that. To get a perfect bake, that's what you would have to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find this piece here, okay, which is, for me, it's 1017. It's this piece right here that's causing some issues. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the texture set settings and move that out of the way so you guys can see what's going on. And I can kind of scroll down, and you can see the maps that I've created. So you can see that the ID map is no longer there in the normal map, the world space normal map. But what I can do is I can delete the normal map, and you'll see that go away. So I'm going to delete that. Now the only thing we have left is the ambient occlusion for that, so I'm going to get rid of that. And that pretty much takes care of those issues I have with that. Okay. Now, the next issue that I see, that took care of that, so that's looking pretty good. Otherwise, everything else is looking really nice. We've got some issues in the back here. They're not terrible. And our textures might take care of that. I don't know. We'll have to see. We have some overlapping a issue right here with the normal map bake on that, which we could probably fix in Photoshop. So we'll look around the model a little bit. You can see this one piece of piece of armor right here has kind of got an issue. And just because I'm having issues, or I have some issues, doesn't mean that you will have the same issues. And I'm not too worried about this piece right here because the texture map will take care of that. You won't really see that. But what I'm looking for is nice soft edges, which is great right here. So the normal map did bake really nice onto the low poly, so I'm really happy with that. Okay, these are just subtle. These are just subtle things, errors that we've had. So I'm not really too worried about it. It's actually looking pretty good. Alright, so I need to find that piece right here. So what I'm going to do is, I have no idea where that piece is, so I'm going to go ahead and try to find it. And I'm going to pause the video again really quick while I try to find it. Hold on. Okay, so I found it with mine. It was 1003 UV tile. You can see it right here. That's the issue that I'm having. Will it continue to be an issue if I try to texture it? Probably. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from the curvature map? It looks like it's coming from the curvature. So let me delete that. Nope. I guess it wasn't that. Ambient occlusion, maybe? Let's go Control-Z back. So curvature map was okay. Ambient occlusion, there it is. So ambient occlusion map was the issue. Now, it's easy to fix all this stuff. If you make a mistake, just Control-Z back. Okay, let's say I want to keep that in there. And you'll see that it'll update again, and maybe, yep, there it is. So it's the ambient occlusion, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. There we go. And I don't really see any other issues. Maybe on the handle here. I'm not exactly sure what's happening here with that, but Maybe the texture will take care of that. If not, I can go ahead and find it and fix it in Photoshop. So you can see that now I've got everything fixed with my model and the maps. And so what I probably want to do now is I want to go in here and go and save this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Save As. I want to save it in the same Maya project file. Okay. So let's go find that file. Alright. And we want to place it inside my folder, right on the outside here. And we're just going to call this, let's say, Substance Painter. Alright, and we're going to start 01. Okay, so I'm saving the actual painter file so I don't have to go through this again. So I've gotten to this point, and now I don't want to have to go in here. Oh, see, and it was actually saving it, and I tried to do something else, and this is what happens. So don't freak out. It'll if it closes. So try not to just when you save stuff in Painter, it takes a while. So I went a little too fast, and it scared me a little bit. Okay. So, alright, so save your files, and now it's time to texture. And now you can go in here, and I'll just do a quick, let's do the first one, which is probably one of the first, let's go ahead and do this one since it's up, since we have that one up already. So we're going to drag and drop. We're going to use a smart material. Smart materials are pretty cool. There we go. And I usually start with like gunmetal. Is awesome. Gunmetal is really awesome to use. So I'm going to use gunmetal, and I'm just going to drag and drop it right into the layer. Here we go. So you can see we've got a nice gunmetal started. And I'm not going to tell you how to, and don't worry about this little guy right here. I can fix this pretty easily in Photoshop, so I have no problem doing that. Also, looks like if from farther away, it looks more like it should be part of the model, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so that's what you can do. I've also got some other pre-made smart materials that I've created. So I'm going to get rid of this one, gunmetal. That's always fun, but I'm going to get rid of that one. And let's try one of my painted ones that I actually created. Here we go. Ooh, I like that. That's cool. I like the color of that. And you can see I've got some different textures on there. I've actually created this from scratch, and it was a lot of fun. Get rid of that one. Let's try one of these here. There we go. Same kind of thing. Alright, so in this section, you just basically drag and drop, and you tweak out your smart materials. You've got other materials here that you can try. Painted steel in Substance Painter 2020. These smart materials are really nice. You can do a lot of tweaking with these. So even have fun. You guys textured your crate really well, so I want you to go in and do your own thing with it, and just have fun. And I'm not going to show you how I textured mine. You'll be able to see that in Module 11, but I'm not going to put it up until the very end on Friday, my final rendered image, because I want you guys to really go out on your own and not copy what I have. So go on your own. I want you to texture your low poly sci-fi weapon yourself. And what I want you to do is, we're not making this cartoonish. We're going to make this as realistic as possible. Again, I want this to be realistic. So look at how guns are manufactured and the materials that are on regular guns, and just kind of go from there. Find some references out there. Have a great week. I'll see you guys, and good luck with everything, and have fun texturing. It's always the best part. And I will see you next time. Have a nice week.